we have Jesse Noby. Jesse is one of our lead technology strategists, and Jesse has worked with a good number of our sports teams on the different technical aspects of what they're doing. So, getting their ticketing data plugged into Eloqua either directly through like a core or an SSB, or coming through their CRM, getting CRM integration set up. And so we have the opportunity sometimes where different clients have unique use cases in the way that they want to leverage that ticketing data. And so this is one example of that. So Jesse, the floor is yours. I will navigate the slides for you as you present the ticket sales opportunity process.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Brandy. So yeah, if you could just go to the next slide, please. So, I think it was last year, the Panthers approached us to help build out this process. And, it was definitely a team effort, but they were really driving it in terms of, this is exactly what we want to get out of this. So you'll see in a minute, I'm going to jump into the product. They were gracious enough to let me actually show off what we built today. And I'll do a really kind of high level walkthrough of, the actual process that we built out. But just kind of starting conceptually, lead management in sports it's not the same as other businesses, right? As other B2Cs or B2Bs, where you're typically working with leads, contacts, accounts, opportunities. In the sports world, ticket sales opportunities tend to stand in for the lead because you have previous ticketing data stored in another system. You're able to identify those past ticket purchasers. And from the Eloqua side of things, we're able to say, okay, well, these are the people that are interacting with the system through landing pages or emails or whatever, the case may be. We can actually identify them and funnel them through to sales. So in this case, the Panthers are on Salesforce and they're using Core. So we built out this process with all three of those players, in the game. So Core actually contributes quite a bit to this in terms of certain fields that they're making available to us. And you'll see in this process, there are a few that we're actually looking at specifically. And I'm going to really talk mostly about the outbound process from Eloqua over to Salesforce. I don't think anybody from the Panthers was able to join us today. But if anybody is interested to learn more about the Salesforce side of things, they have offered to have another call if anybody wants to get together and really dig much deeper into this whole thing. So the general process is identifying the opportunities on the Eloqua side, putting them through a qualification process, and then either assigning them to a known rep, someone who has checked them out, or round robining them to someone in a specific group of sales reps. And then there's a bonus where we actually created a task in Salesforce so that the reps will, have a little bit of additional information and they know to follow up. Right, so let's go to the next slide. So, why would we want to do this, right? Well, first of all, it's better than nothing, right? If you're not pushing anything from your marketing automation system to sales, and you have both of those systems, I think that first and foremost, that's a missed opportunity. But then going beyond that, if you're new to that whole thing, you may just start by sending anybody that seems like an opportunity over to sales. And then taking that a step further, you really want to start looking at the qualification process that you're going through on the marketing automation side, because that is really a lot of, the purpose of having that system is to denoise what's happening with the sales team, right? We don't want to just send them anything and everything because they're going to be frustrated. with the quality of those records they're getting. So we, again, in a second, I'll jump in and show you where we're prioritizing the high value opportunities. And, also tied up with this is the configuration. So what you guys decide is a priority for you may be different than what we've done with the Panthers. So that's one of the really great strengths of Eloqua with the program canvas is that it's really just drag and drop, draw the lines where you want them to go, and align this whole thing with the strategy that is important to you. All right, so let's go to the next slide. I think we're ready for the baking show. All right, so I am going to share my screen, and I'm going to attempt to draw on it as well. Try and illustrate a few things for everybody here. All right, so you should be seeing Eloqua. And let me pull up my little annotation guy here. So I wanted to start with the actual program itself. And what we're doing is we're calling this the TSO router. So it looks really busy and it looks really daunting, but it's really not as bad as you may think. So first off, I just wanted to kind of scroll through here and give you all an idea of all the stuff in here. So yeah, it really looks like there's a lot going on, right? But really, this is the same sort of steps repeated over and over for different sources that we identified. So part of me says that if I were to do this again, I'd probably split it up into different programs. But as it stands, this really does work out pretty well. So I'm just going to zoom out a little bit so we can see the new business section. And draw a little bit on here. So in the new business section, we've got 3 entry points. We've got website interactions, we've got forms, and then we've got interactions with campaigns. And so you can see that a lot of this, pretty much above this line, is all very similar stuff. We're doing some things where we're saying, are they already somewhere in this process? Well, if they're already in the process, we don't want to overwhelm this. We don't want to send too many records to sales, so we're just going to kick them out, right? That's pretty much what's happening here. And then once we've decided that you're allowed to enter into the program, we're going to make sure that we can actually do something with you in Salesforce. So if you are not in Salesforce, we're going to send you through a flow to get in there. And that is basically pushing people over to our standard outbound program that we have built with the native integration, which I can show you all in a second. So basically, people get over here, and they will just loop back and forth until they get an ID. If they never get an ID, well, then they're not going to do anything in this process, right? So we definitely want to be sure that anybody coming through here is, in this case, a contact in Salesforce. So then we can create that opportunity and link them up. So part of this, too, is that prioritization I was talking about. So for the Panthers, they said anybody who's submitting a certain form, we're going to try and fast track them through this process. So we still are, making sure that they're in Salesforce and everything, but there's a lot less steps in here in terms of getting them down ultimately to this section of the program. And this is where we're saying, well, if we know that you're already checked out by someone in Salesforce, this is where Core comes in, then we can just, reassign you, create that new opportunity for that sales rep so that they can continue managing that relationship. And if it's been more than a month, we've decided that we're going to do a round robin to a group that is in the new business section of the sales team. So that's another one of the things about this whole process that is the strength of this native integration that Eloqua has with Salesforce, is that we're able to do that round robining. All right, so I just want to pause there and see if anybody has any questions. Otherwise, I'll just keep going. All right, cool. So next up, another big component of this is forms. So we're recording this information as people go through, right? So we're saying we know somebody came from the website. They were browsing on a section of the website, that was geared towards new business. So up here, we've said we actually created this cool process with Eloqua page tags and lead scoring to identify those people. Then we have a filter in here to say, did they reach a certain threshold? If they didn't reach the threshold, we don't care about them. They're gone. But if they reached our threshold, then we want to say, okay, write some data into their Eloqua contact to say, this is where they came from, this is what they were interested in, and then we're going to use that later on to populate the ticket sales opportunity on the way out. Just clear this up. So this is just in my next tab an example of what that form looks like. It's a very simple form this is an internal form in Eloqua, so we already have email address, right? But we're capturing a campaign ID for Salesforce so that we can do that assignment on the other side, the name, some details around, where they were coming from, lead source, and the Panthers opted to also, have some season information in there. And this is just a really simple form. All it does is it takes that data and puts it onto the contact. So once you get through this process and you end up in one of these programs, let's jump over to Eloqua's program builder. This is where all the magic happens in terms of deciding what we're going to do, right? So we have one program here that we use for anybody where we know they're checked out. It doesn't really matter, if they came in from new business or premium events or anything like that. We're putting that information in on the ticket sales opportunity, and we're just surfacing it for that rep so that they can have a more intelligent conversation. So those people all come through here. We actually do the creation. We make sure that it was created in Salesforce. And then if it was, we create that follow-up activity, and then everybody gets removed from the program one way or another. Now, if you didn't already exist in Salesforce, there's this program. I won't go into too much detail here, but basically this just says we need to create a contact for you or update an existing contact. And this does some other things that are, more custom, more specific to the Panthers. And then for the really cool stuff with this is we have these different round robin programs that are aligned to all sales reps, new business, premium events, and groups. So if we look at all, anyone that comes in through here goes through this round robin process. And I should mention that this is something that is really specific to Eloqua's program builder. It's not a feature that they've migrated to Program Canvas yet. So if you do want to do something with round robining, it does need to be with the native integration of Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics and Program Builder. Now, I have talked with the project manager who's working on the new integrations that they have, and just telling them how this is such a cool feature, and it's something that I think people would really want to have. So expect hopefully that will be something that they add in the future. Now, again, there's a lot of things kind of going on behind the scenes here, but essentially what this is doing is it's looking at a certain group of Eloqua users that we've created, where we've also populated their Salesforce user IDs. And so what this does, if I dig in here, is it says, well, we've got this rule that we created, actually perform a round robin, so randomly select someone from this group, and then it takes the result of that, which is their first name and last name, and puts it onto their Eloqua contact in a field. So once we get to this step where we create the ticket sales opportunity, I'll just show you this. The field mapping is a little bit different here, where we actually do a lookup to the Eloqua user here, and this populates with that Eloqua or the Salesforce user ID. And so that's how we're able to do that assignment straight out of Eloqua in Salesforce. Otherwise, we already have the ID for someone who's checked out the record, and we're able to just, send that directly over without having to do any sort of lookup. All right, so that is pretty much it from the Eloqua side. Again, if anybody's interested in really digging deep into this and looking at all the specifics, I'm happy to set up another call with the Panthers because they played a huge role in this in terms of guiding the overall design and the specific outcomes that they wanted to get from it. But otherwise, I think we've got one more slide. So let me hand it back to you, Brandy. All right, so yeah, I mean, I think the cool thing about this is if you have Eloqua, you have Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics, you pretty much have all the tools you need to build a process like this. So, that's a lot of what we like to do at Tegrita is leverage the features of the platform, and only if there's a really big gap do we go in through a custom app to fill that gap. So with this, it really is just if you can dream it, you can do it sort of thing. And what I showed is just one expression of any number of different ways that you could approach this. There are a couple of caveats. I mentioned a few of them throughout this, but I think the biggest one is round robining is only available through that program builder and through that native integration at this point. I do think that if we really put our mind to it, we could come up with something that approximates that with the program canvas and the new integration for Salesforce. But just know that that's probably not going to be as good or exactly the same thing. And the other thing is that the native integration is not as quick as the new integration is. So that's another trade-off that you may want to consider. As Oracle worked on that new integration app, their main goal was the speed to lead of 60 seconds or less, whereas the native integration is more upwards of like 20 minutes. So yeah, and that's really it. So thank you all for attending and listening.
Awesome. Thank you, Jesse.